Welcome to Brobench videos. In this video, we're going to give an overview of a query module. Query module has a lot of capabilities, and we may not be able to deep dive into all aspects of query module, but we'll give an overview and touch upon all the different features, and then you can go back and explore that particular feature in the documentation to get to know more about it. Query module is one of the core module in the Brobench, and that's why it is always pinned to the top of the toolbar here in the tab strip. You can wherever you want, you can just come here and then you can click, and also you can access that from the tab menu, which is next to that particular tab strip. You can select query there, and then that should bring up. When you open the query module, this is the layout that is presented. Depending on your editions, some features may or may not be available, so keep that in mind. On the left side, you have a saved queries saved queries tree that is shown here. You can collapse and expand this particular tree using this icon. You can click on it to collapse and expand it. You can search for the queries and you can run them easily. So go check out the saved queries help to get to know more about it. On the right side, you have the query editor, and then you can have one or more editors, and also it has a builder and some controls. On the bottom, you have a query results that is shown. It doesn't matter whether you execute from here, editor, or from the saved queries, the results will always be shown at the bottom. So let's go and try out some query and then see how it works. So let's go on author, select star from account limit 10. Okay, so you can see that I executed using a keyboard shortcut, but you can also select the query, click on this button here, execute, and then it will run in the same way. Okay. You can also right click on the query, and then you can say execute. As you can see, the shortcut is printed there. It is command enter. So you can do command enter in the Mac or control enter in Windows. It will run the query. By default, it will run the query based on the current paragraph. For example, let's say this is a paragraph that I have selected. Okay, and then I keep the cursor anywhere in the paragraph and run the query. It will run that particular query. If I keep here, then select, it will run that particular query. You can see that it didn't pick this particular query, but it picked only this particular query. That works only if you have the space line between them, but if you don't, then it's gonna try to select all of that, and then it's gonna give an error. For example, if I try to run this, it's gonna give an error because it tried to run all of this one paragraph that contains two different queries, so it's gonna give an error. So in such cases, you can also select and run the query. For example, in that case, if you have any text selected, it will run that particular text only. So for example, in this case, I selected only select star from account and then run that. It will run that particular query. Okay, so keep that in mind. So you don't have to select the query that you run. As long as you separate each query by a space, you can just run them, and then it will run that particular paragraph. So there is a default way to run the query. It will run using, not to include the deleted or archived records, using the standard, the default API for an object, either tooling or a REST API. But you can override or adjust how you want to run them by using this execute other. For example, let's say you have selected a bunch of fields. Let's say ID, name, billing city, shipping city. You're trying to run this particular query. Assume that you have a complicated query with a whole bunch of sockles and predicates and all that. And if you want to know the count, how many records that going to be returned as part of the query, one way to do that, you have to run the whole thing and then see the count, which is shown here. Okay, 10 records. Or you can also do this execute other as a count query. So in that case, it will actually change the query, the select class, to change that to count class, and then count function, and then it will run the query so that you get the efficient way to get the count without you having to do any of the work. So like that, we have other options. Go and check out what each and every other option means. We have these IDs. Okay, so let's say when you have a set of IDs here, let's say that I have a set of IDs, you have selected. And then somebody sent a set of IDs in a chat, email, what have you. You want to query them. Of course, you can author a query, put them all in a SOQL function, but you can just click this. In this case, it will actually try to run the queries, open the IDs for that particular in the clipboard. So in this case, it will open up like this. So this is the query history. So as and when you execute, the query history is maintained with the execution count. And if you want to manage it, you can click on it and you can manage it. Go check out the query history to understand more about that. This shows all the favorites, and the favorites are added as part of the saved script, because when you're editing a saved script, you can indicate a particular query as a favorite, and then it will show up here. Okay. So you can, once it is available here, you can just click on it and then you can run that easily. This is a query template. If you notice that when I typed, it showed a set of options here. These options are coming from the query templates. So there are some standard ones that we add, which you cannot manipulate, but you can add your own. For example, in this case, select con. So I can go here, I can just type select con. It should show there. And then after that, it'll expand to the query that you have specified. Okay, so go check out the query templates capability there. The contents of the query editor is always saved automatically when you execute a query or at a time interval. For whatever reason, if you are closing the tab and you want to make sure the contents are saved, you can click on this icon, so it will save the contents. Coming to the query editor itself, so you have the comments. So for example, let's say you have this, like this, and let's say you want to comment a particular field for whatever reason, you can comment like that. Control tab, comment starts with single line comments. We also support multi-line comments, but single line comments are easy. You can do command / or control / in Windows, and then that will comment or uncomment that particular line that you are doing. And when you run it, it will run the query with just the ID, because we have commented the name. On the right side, we show the mini map of the editor. So this you can easily to understand where the particular query is and all that. Okay, so you can use that to navigate as well, like this. You can create the editor regions. You can type region, and then it will give a region like that. For example, you can give a name to it. Let's say the region is demo overview. Okay, so then the region will show up here in the bigger font, so that you can easily identify that particular region, and then any query that you put there, so it will become part of that particular region. You can open an outline of the query using Command O or Control O in Windows, and then it will show all the queries in the editor in a past state, so you can explore them, what fields it has, and where predicate and all that. Keep in mind, it doesn't show all the details of the query, including for example, if you have a having class or a scope, what have you, but it gives a select class and then where class and all that. So which also you can search for. For example, here you can search for account, and then it shows all the places where you are selecting an account. Okay, you can give a comment before the query like this. For example, let's say selecting demo. Then in the outline, that name will be used. For example, here if you say SOQL selecting demo accounts, so in this case you can type demo accounts, and then it will show up, and then you can enter. It will go to that particular query. You can open multiple tabs by clicking on this. For example, in this case, new query editor, let's say demo tab. It will open, so you can separate to organize your queries by client, feature, object, what have you, however it sees fit. You can author different type of queries. You can actually author SOQL queries here as well. For example, find test returning account. Okay, so when you run that, it is running the search, and then you can see that search account, it returned the 4 records. Okay, or you can run the SOQL, that's a standard one. If you have paid attention, we have some enhancements to the socle and as well as a socle when you run from within a Brobench. First of the one of the enhancement is the wildcards. If you notice that, I typed select star from account limit 10. Okay, so it run all the queries. I know there is the fields all, but fields all come with a lot of limitations. You can't select more than 200 records when you do that. But this provides a lot of capabilities. For example, you can say full wildcard, there's a complete wildcard, or you can do partial wildcard. For example, let's say I want to do billing star. I want ID, name, and then billing star. So it selects the ID, name, and all the billing fields. So this gives the best of both in terms of convenience and then the performance. But it is always suggested for the performance reasons, especially if you have a lot of records and exporting. Always specify exact fields that you're looking for. But if you're querying, in the sandbox or few records, the convenience of this wildcard can't be overstated. And you can also do suffix. For example, let's say I do star city, so it will do the billing city, all the billing fields, and as well as a shipping city, because that's a one field with the star ship city. Okay, you can use a query variables. For example, let's say you have a set of IDs that you copied. You can copy them and run them. For example, when you go here, okay, you can say where ID in account IDs. So you can run this query and then it will pop up to enter the query variables. If you have multiple query variables, it will keep one after the another. You can run them, okay, and then it will show the query. It will run that, show that particular result. So there's a lot of capability in the query variables as well. So for each of these, go check out additional documentation to how to understand it. So then you have query history that we talked about. You can recall and then you can run them. For example, select star and then it will run that query, or you can click on the manage query history to go back there. We do have a final feature here, is a query builder. Query builder is a feature-rich query socle builder in Brobench. You can select an object first and then it shows all the fields. You can select one or more fields and then you can specify the where expression using the fields. And then it supports all the different the types, like a date and times and all that. For example, if you select a created date, you can see that it has a whole bunch of stuff using a picker that you can pick a date, or a literal, you can select any of the literals, or a relative input, you can say like a -5D for 5 days, or raw input, you can type up your own input like that. So if it is a Boolean, it shows true and false. If it is a pick list field, then it shows the pick list values to select, so on and so forth. In this case, let's say clean status. You can see that it is selecting this, and if it is a in, then it shows as the multi pick list. So you can select like that. You can auto by and other options, and then you can execute from here. You can click on it, and then it will execute it. Query editor, the Brobench supports up to 5 levels of child queries. That is what the standard Salesforce is. And it renders in a beautiful way for easy to access. For example, you can select ID name, okay, like that. See, it's selected parent and the child, so you can keep going up to 5 levels. The beauty of Brobench, which is not supported by any other tool that you can think of, is that it has subquery completion as well. For example, let's say in this case, I want to do the first name, last name. Okay, so owner dot profile dot name, for example. So you can keep going, and if you have more of that, for example, like I select star from histories, that's a contact histories. Now we can enter, okay, a new field, for example, okay, old value, okay, so I don't know what all there, so we have to explore it. But it also supports wildcards within this one. Coming to SOQL enhancements, we talked about query variables. So we talked about the wildcards. And we have another enhancement that we have is a dangling comma support. For example, you can leave the last comma of the field as is, and then it won't compile, it will just ignore it. For example, let's say in this case, and add a dangling comma here, and then if you run it, so it just ignores the dangling comma. So this can be very useful when you have fields in a multiple lines, and to be able to easily comment one of them and run them. Let's say if you have a this clause here, okay, select star from contacts. Okay, so now if you comment this, typically you will have to go and remove this comma, otherwise it won't run. But in Brobench you can just run that. It will run that, ignoring that particular comma. We do have other functions similar to the fields called BB fields that has much more capability to be able to select by type and all that. So go explore the documentation. Okay. This is about the query feature in Brobench. As you can see, there is a ton of capabilities, and we have created additional video guides for different aspects of the query editor. And if you think additional capabilities would be helpful, or if you have any questions, please let us know.